Hey, Launch family, we'll get to today's Dare to Launch episode in just a minute, but listening to another podcast isn't going to get your business launched. Know what's going to get you launched? Being part of the launch community and being in the groups and programs with people like the ones we talk to on the podcast. Don't you want to be the person we're interviewing on the podcast? Well, if so, go to getyouLaunched.com and join this year's Launch Masterclass. It's the absolute best free launch training that you can get. You'll be learning how to launch directly from Jeff, and it's happening right now from August 15th to the 29th. Go to getyouLaunched.com and sign up today. Now here's today's Dare to Launch.
Because I'm Jeff Noble and you're Jeff Walker, right? So there's Jeff Walker's product launch formula. There's Jeff Noble's caregiver kickstart.
So individuals on the spectrum, they know a lot, but that's not the issue. It's not what they know, it's what they do with what they know.
And I was living with it real time. So my learning curve went right down, and I took what I learned and then I started applying it at home, and then it started working. That people don't care who you are until you have the answers they want. So I'm glad that I dared to launch, right?
What does launch life really mean to you now?
Launch life to me means...
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to today's episode. My name is Chris, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, everybody.
And today we have a very special guest for you. He is the founder and CEO of Noble Initiatives, an organization that provides hope and education to people caring for someone living with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. He is a longstanding member of our PLF community and also, I might say, a fellow Canadian. So, Mr. Jeff Noble, welcome to Dare to Launch.
Hey. Listen, fellas, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. As a fellow Canadian, I'm glad to talk shop with some of the boys here. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Excited to have you on. Thanks for coming on for this show. Why don't we start off with just, for people who maybe don't know, like, what do you do and why is it important to you?
That's a great question, my friend. Okay, so Chris, what I do is I run a company called Noble Initiatives, and we provide online and in-person training to parents who are raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And we do that so that they can have better days, more good days at home, and become amazing advocates in the community. And why I do what I do is like an origin story from everywhere else, my good man. I learned about it. I was affected by it. I learned a way how to manage it and felt this gravity to teach other people how to do it. So we've been doing that since I've been on my own since about 2012. Oh gosh, that's cool. So you can see we're a veteran at this now, and I burned the boats a long time ago, my good man. So it's an overwhelming sense of duty, but also it's like it pushes me and it challenges me. It's all the good things.
Jeff, can you just tell, because we've talked a number of times about this, so I've gotten to know a little bit about it, but could you just talk a little bit about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder? Because I think the scale of this, people just don't understand.
You're right, they don't. And thanks for bringing attention to that. So FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, is a neurological disability that affects not only the brain, but also the body of persons who were prenatally exposed to alcohol in the womb. Layman's, it is a lifelong disability that affects both the brain and body, and individuals on the spectrum will need different kind of supports in many different areas of their lives every single day. So mom drinks, baby may get an organic lifelong brain injury because of that. How does that happen? Is because alcohol, the chemical itself, it's a teratogen. And a known teratogen is something that causes birth defects. There's other teratogens. There's a lot, right? There's 50,000, but some of the popular ones are like radiation and mercury and alcohol. But yet, this teratogen is available on the shelves. And the one thing I will say is that drinking while you're pregnant is just a risk factor. It doesn't lead directly to a diagnosis. All moms are different. Things are different. And the reason I say that is, well, I'm not a proponent of drinking while you're pregnant. I want to give accurate information, and I don't want to scare women and parents and families, because that's and what's happened if we have this all or nothing attitude. Well, alcohol isn't good and you should abstain from it. And but at the same time, it's like playing fetal roulette. Long story short, mom drinks, baby gets organic injury that is with them for their whole life, right? From womb to tomb, as a nurse once told me. So, but it doesn't mean it's a death sentence, Jeff, right? Like, and just in terms of the scope, it is 2.5 times more prevalent than autism. It's far less known, and the stigma is high. And there's a 50 million different reasons, but at the end of the day, it is the largest cause of developmental disabilities in the world. They say the Western world, but I've been all over the world, and anywhere there's alcohol, there's fetal alcohol. But it is the largest cause, man. It's like conservative estimates, 4% in Canada, the population. In the United States, 1 in 20 first graders, up to 8% in because it's so available. So that's the long. Hopefully, I gave a little bit, because I know we have done some surface stuff, Jeff. So hopefully that says a little bit more. But I will end on this. I've never met a mom that would ever hurt their baby on purpose. Never, ever, 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 ever. Right? There's reasons. If a woman is drinking while they're pregnant, they don't have the right information. Because how many stories did you hear about even doctors saying it was okay? Or you hear, Jeff, back in the day about in labor rooms, like they used to have alcohol to induce pregnancies. Even still to this day, there's stories about that, right? So women aren't getting the right information. There's addictions, there's traumas, there's all sorts of different issues that way. They could also be on the spectrum themselves. There's mental health. There's so many different reasons, but it's never because a mom chose drinking over their baby ever. I'll just, I'll get off my soapbox, dude, but that's important to say, is because we're 3 dudes talking about women's bodies and stuff. So I just want to let that.
You've been in the PLF world, in my world, for a long time. You came in and you've built up a significant business. Can you just talk a little bit about your business and how it works and what you do?
Yeah, how it works, because I copied you. Honest to goodness, in terms of the structure, right? It's like, again, when I saw you and I found you and you were a relatable dude, and I was like, well, I'm an average guy. He seems like an average guy. So, but my business is just like yours almost to a T, because I told you that so you wouldn't sue me, and you said it was cool, right? Literally down to almost like the name, because I'm Jeff Noble and you're Jeff Walker, right? So there's Jeff Walker's product launch formula. There's Jeff Noble's caregiver kickstart. Like, it's the same but different, And so I have a business. We do lots of online stuff. It used to be about 50-50 before the pandemic, because I've been able to speak with, trainings all over the world, which is really cool. But pandemic, we've focused a lot, obviously, on our online business. So I do a free workshop, a free FASD workshop, and then our offer comes out. It's called the Caregiver Kickstart. And we spend 6 months with families with the transformation of people can go from knowing nothing, like parents could go from knowing nothing about the disability all the way to pros, but we will still take them on a journey. And that journey is what we call like placement stability, like a stable home. Because research tells us that's the number one success factor, right? For individuals on the spectrum, is a stable home, a stable placement, because the world's tough out there. So that's so our business, we do it that way. And then we spend 6 months. And then of course we have, then we open up another offer for those folks, which is our next tier, just like Launch Club, but I call it the Caregiver Club, right? Because it's the same, right? We don't teach the same things, but terms of the structure. And then we just literally, I'm in the middle of a seed launch for my next state, which is like we're calling it the FASD Experts Academy. And so that is folks who now want to share their message and who want to take it to that next level. So we kind of go from, my goal is to have people from know nothing all the way to doing advocacy, doing their own workshops, starting their own agencies, because by proxy, we've already been doing that. I just haven't been intentional about it. So now we're doing that. So that's how my business works. And if not, we're in person. We're doing massive workshops and keynote at conferences and all that sort of stuff. So that's how my business works, man.
That's awesome. I love to hear about the impact that you are making, and that's just what it sounds like, is that there's this ripple of impact from what you're doing. A lot of people get into our world, or Jeff's world, I should say, for out of necessity, like they need to get their business launched to make some money, or because they need to fix up their lifestyle. They really want to create an impact. It sounds like you kind of created that for yourself in all those different areas. Like, can you talk about maybe a little bit about what drove you into Jeff's world to make that leap and say, like, yeah, I'm ready to launch?
Yeah, it's called ADHD. It's called not being employable. Like that's like, I always wanted to do my own thing. I couldn't work for other people. I can't stand it. You can't tell me when I can take a break or not. Like, just come on, man. That's just like, you know what I mean? 8 hours a day when you can really only function if you're awesome for 5 or 6, like just the whole thing. And that's cool for there's different strokes for different folks. That's just, I knew that growing up. School wasn't, they didn't know how to teach me, but I always knew that I was going to do something. I was going to do something that way. And I said, I'll learn it. Anywho, I did manage to graduate high school, but that was with, building a lot of relationships with teachers. Lots of soft skills there, fellas, to get me through, to get the old passing grade. But the importance of all of this, man, and starting this is how it goes. I'll give you the quick story. So back in 2007, 2008, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, now baby mama, Tara, she was getting her Bachelor of Social Work degree from a university. And therefore, she was also working at a part-time at an agency. I was in sales. I was doing like direct sales. And she was working at an agency where 99% of the individuals had FASD. And she would come home and tell me the most crazy stories, right? Like, you're not supposed to disclose, what's going on with clients, but everybody goes home to their spouse and tells them anyway. So don't judge me. You get me, right? So she would tell me about these stories, and she worked in a home where there was 2 staff for 1 kid, 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day. And they needed it too, because, part of the disability is the injury on the brain is impulse issues, right? So there is no breaks on some of our guys. So they see it, they do. So you really need extra eyes and ears and all that stuff, right? So I tell people it's like if you ever dealt with someone with dementia, if you've ever dealt with anyone with that, it's a brain injury. It's similar, but it's on younger people who look normal and talk normal, but have the same symptoms, right? Because the same areas of the brain are impacted. So she came up to me and she was like, Jeff, hey, dude, I think this is something you would like to do. She would tell me about these stories about police involvement and just the silly things these kids have done. Like, I use levity, but these are some of the most challenging children and young adults on the planet. They're in this agency because there is nowhere else to go, right? Like, there is nowhere else to go. So she asked me if I'd like to do it. And I did want a new career because while I love sales, I do not like the corporate stuff, right? I don't want to kiss butt. I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. And like, if you're cool, I'm cool, and we're cool. Okay. So long story short, this is what happens. I decided to join and I got hired. Like, I thought it was because I was awesome, but little did I know it was because I was fresh meat for the grinder, dude. And then I get to this house And that's kind of where my journey started. And then I went from part-time to full-time to then the coordinator. And then I became a foster parent. And that is where that's where I got the lesson, man, because it doesn't matter how challenging the kids were I worked with. At the end of the day, you got to go home and chill out and put your feet up and have a drink and what. When you're now a parent and there is no breaks. There is no breaks. And so the intensity, and then the honeymoon period ends and you get comfortable around each other, because my guy masked his symptoms so well, but then it was a nightmare. It was 40 pounds heavier than it was. I developed anxiety. I never had anxiety before in my life. So then when he asked me, why did I start this? Because during that time, I thought I was getting fired, dude. Because my boss called me in, and I remember practicing when I was driving, like what to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. I don't know if you guys have ever got fired, but you do that, right? And I was like, don't cry, Jeff, don't cry. It ends up, he asked me how I'm doing, and I say, well, you could see. He says, dude, I have an opportunity for you. There is this place called the Toronto Children's Aid Society. They have something called the Child Welfare Institute. And they're putting on the very first FASD certificate program, and I want you to go. And I was like, what? Like, because I thought I was getting fired, right? And now this guy's giving me this opportunity. It's one of the reasons is because I got for a year to learn from some of the best facilitators. And FASD was still relatively young, and I was the youngest dude there by like 15 years because I thought it was child and youth workers, but it was all supervisors and executive directors. So I got to learn from them. So I'm telling you, and I was living with it real time. So my learning curve went right down, and I took what I learned, and then I started applying it at home. And then it started working. We started having less meltdowns. We started fighting less. There was more peace. I couldn't believe it. And then, as part of my learning, they brought in real families, and the real families kept saying the same thing over and over. People think we're crazy. The school doesn't get it. The justice system doesn't get it. My own family doesn't get it. My kid doesn't sleep. My kid has these meltdowns. My kid doesn't, on and on and on. We feel so alone and isolated. We feel like we're going crazy. And I had a bit of survivor's guilt, right? Here I was doing this for maybe 2 years, talking to a mom who's a foster mom or adoptive mom who's been doing it for 30, and she's just crushed. And so then I hear that it's 4% of the population. And then I look and I see, Chris, that there's nothing and there's nobody out there. That's how it started. I thought, boom, and I know it's a longer story, but I was like, wow, this is incredible. And this was like something I was looking for, but then I didn't know what to do. How did I start? Where did I go? Enter PLF. Right.
Well, must have been.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I mean, what I hear in that story is that you are an experiential learner, right? Like you immersed yourself in a lot of what was going on, and that's how you learned, through experience, through doing, through actually having it around you, and modeling those people who were experts and mentors. And so I guess the question I have around that is that was that the same experience when you kind of joined into PLF community, or learning? Because business is a totally different skill set than what you already had, right?
Yes. Okay. But so I was already in sales. It's a different sell. So when I would do the kiosks in the mall for World Vision or whatever major charity, they've already had brand recognition. I did not have any of that. All I had to do is smile, eye contact, excitement. I was like, my first sales lesson, right? This is me naturally. So that's a skill, but it's just not a skill. It's just like a character trait. So people gravitate towards that. Boom. I was like, here we go, right? And sign one up. Like, you're saving kittens, man. Like, what's the big deal, right? But when you now you have to build from nothing. I had no brand. I wasn't representing anything. I only had high school, man. Like mind you, I ended up getting this awesome education from the Child Welfare Institute. Great, but I had nothing. And so that's how it was. And the first PLF, I just couldn't afford it. I went through the whole thing in the free one, and I'm just like vibrating, right? And I just was like, but everywhere, every angle I looked, I took, it just wasn't viable. And then, I kept following Jeff. And then the next time the buzz started floating and I knew that the workshop was coming around again, I made sure that I secured financing to do this, because that was a lot of money, even because I was, just a young guy, as a foster parent. And, but I knew because that was the next step, and Jeff shared the steps. So it was in warm and inviting. I wasn't prepared to be a schmarmy sales guy. Like I had to deliver value, and this guy is saying you have to lead with it, and your marketing has to be true. This is what I'm talking about, because there has to be a way. And I just started. I just made a pact to myself. I was like, you spent this money. Doesn't matter what happens, you're launching. You're just launching. You're just doing it. And that's kind of how I got started.
Could you tell us a little bit about that first launch, and maybe what are some of the earliest lessons you learned from it?
The very first one. So I wrote a book. Like, I'm saying that loosely, okay? Like, loosely. We still get messages to this day about spelling, but whatever. I digress. Okay, so that's because in the thing, it was like the guru thing, like the position, you called it something, doesn't matter. And one of that was publish. You have to publish. I had done some limited publishing. I had a little blog, and then Jeff was like, just put all your blogs or chapters. Not, he didn't just say that to me like that, but essentially that was the message received, boy. So we did it. And so here I was with a book. It was just like, those rings, the old ring binder things, like that you slap together at Staples, don't care. And that was my first one, because by this time I had already started building a list, just doing what he said. I just did what they said because I did not know anything. So I guess that was okay because I didn't have any bias towards that. Like I just was like, I'm doing what they say. And so I started like social media and just things that I learned on social media, and then slowly getting the audience. And I was nervous. So my first offer was my book, because we told the story. That was the launch, right? But my book, and then like 4 coaching calls, like old school. I know this, Jeff says old school, but the web director, that little flower thing we had to call in, back in the day. So it was $40. It was $40, and I made $2,000, and I nearly pooped my pants. So I was so happy.
I can imagine, right? So that exceeded the expectations you had going in a bit, I guess.
Well, that's because I now knew I never had to be a representative for any brand, because you can't use phrases like "poop your pants." So that's right. But that's what happened. So 2000, it was incredible. It was amazing, and there's lots of steps up to there. But it was just my mindset was like, I'm doing this, and I don't care if I fall. Like I could say, okay, I tried, right? Because that what if irks me a little bit.
Like one of the things I heard in there was just the determination where you said to yourself, you are launching, you joined this. It was a big leap to join Product Launch Formula, to invest, but I am launching. There's no other way. I am launching. What was that like when you that first launch and you made $2,000?
I got work to do, so it was like, let's do it. But don't forget, you created a community, right? So I was watching other people launch. So now I was seeing and interacting with other members who were having $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 launches, and then that became a 6-figure launch was my goal. But you normalized it. So now it wasn't like if 2000 was this big feat, or, if that would have been amazing. But one of the early lessons, Chris, sorry, I just remembered, was that it's not just about this launch. You're literally thinking 5 launches. And well, maybe the first one you're not, but once I get it. And then you're thinking way down the line. So even still to this day, I could see version 10 in my head, which is frustrating sometimes because you have to, go with the flow sometimes to get there. Remember, Jeff, you did that video with the golf, and your goal is not
Right.
see that kind of thing, right? That's what's up. So the early lesson, dude, is just grin and bear it. And the price of looking foolish is, like, I heard it somewhere, is the price to entry to success. There was people in the PLF community that didn't do very well, but then they would be corrected and then they would do. So it was about following the formula and a system. And one of the big things that Jeff said that really got me was the launch, like the parachute. So if you miss some steps, that's okay, because there was like some fail safes, some stop gaps that could slow you down. So I didn't feel like that I had to get everything right. And as long as I hit these main narratives and that my offer was awesome, and that's kind of how we did it at the beginning. But I was excited, and now it was like, okay, now things make more sense. And then I just eventually had launch seasons, and I would just dive back into PLF because it was like a movie you watched over again or a book you read again, and there was things that made more and more sense. And so sometimes I copied things. I didn't know what they were for, like case studies, like test. I just didn't, really know, or some things I couldn't do because I just didn't understand it. But that's okay. I did what I could, and it grew from there.
Jeff Walker, but could you talk a little bit about what that parachute thing he was just talking about is, or how you explain that? Like, because I think, one, that sounds really interesting, and you just referenced it quickly. We kind of flew over. What are you talking about there? What was that launch parachute thing?
It's this idea that, like with a launch, it's not, you're never dependent on one single piece of the launch, whether it's a piece of pre-launch content, whether it's a sales message, whether it's an email, that the whole thing is a sequence, and there are multiple steps, and you're never going to get everything perfect in a launch. At least I have not yet, and I've done dozens of them. And the idea is that it's like the opposite of a Super Bowl commercial. With a Super Bowl commercial, you pay the contract, you book that time, then you go off and you brainstorm ideas, then you come up with a commercial, and then sometime during the Super Bowl, that commercial is going to get played, and it's either going to sink or swim, depending on the creative, depending on the timing, depending on the quality of the game, depending on all kinds of things. But it's just a one-shot deal. It's either going to work or it doesn't. But a launch is it's more robust in that there are multiple messages, and you don't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes, you can miss pieces, because it's such a redundant process.
But you're the example of it too, right? Like, I mean, how many, let me ask you this, Jeff Noble. I have to keep saying your last names because I'm talking to two Jeffs here, right? But I'm curious, like, when did you start to feel the like you really got this launch thing down, and it was like your process, like, okay, I've got this parachute for the first few, I'm kind of figuring it out, and yes, the results exceeded my expectations. But when did you really start to feel like, oh man, I think I'm a launcher, I can do this?
There's two parts. The first answer is I still don't. Like, that's the beauty of it. I don't, why a lot more. And the one thing is you get along the launch game is like adjustments. You can make more adjustments, because I used to just plow right through. But now with feedback, I know where we can kind of take pieces in, put pieces out. And as long as we're not reinventing the wheel at all, the narrative of the story might have to change. But that's sort of like how you evolve with a launch. I find as soon as you think man, you will get slapped in the face, like, because you'll overlook something. So my mindset is like, this matters. This means something. Even maybe financially it doesn't at that juncture, like, you're adding to your company's overall, and it's not literally so you could put groceries on the table this time, not like the time where like the tax man came and then like they had nothing, but I launched that Friday, so thank goodness. Anyways, tax guy. But that in essence is I don't, which is why I still get coaching and still have a community. But I feel, yes, do I have a handle? I know a lot more of the why. Does that make sense? What's going on? Like, I'm careful with my audience, and I'll be careful with this one too about like expectations, because you still got to work, dude. You still got to want it. And there are days where you're going to say, what the F? But that, with that being said, you have a community to jump into. I just use that, right? Like, these people are doing it. How are they doing it? Well, the benefit of PLF is like, you don't have to reverse engineer. They tell you this is how we do it. And that would drive me crazy when people would try and change it or, go out. Anyway, that's just maybe my OCD thing. But yeah, that's my answer, dude. You don't, but you do know more of the why, and thus launch Parachute, launch. I don't know if Jeff, you still talk about the launch Echo, because that has certainly grabbed me. That shot me like I was gone. Like I didn't even, I was in the stratosphere before I even knew it from launch, because that's what happened. That's why I only ended up for a long time launching once a year, because once my the first launch, I was speaking so much. I was just having such a great time traveling all around the world, right? So,
what is a launch echo? Can you talk about that, Jeff, just for a second?
Yeah, so launch echo is just this idea that when you follow this process and you put together a great launch, you put together great pre-launch content, you deliver value, and then you have this open cart process, that in addition to the sales, you will get all kinds of other things like list building, like a greater stature and positioning in your market. And you'll get invited. You'll have people showing up that want to partner with you in various ways. And you'll get asked to speak on podcasts. You might get asked to speak on stages. You don't have to do any of this, but the reality is all of a sudden you become a very well-known person in your market by following this process.
I wanted to do the speaking. Like, that's what I wanted to do when I was a young boy. I just didn't. I remember talking to a speaking coach. She said, "What's your niche?" I didn't know. I was like, I want to do what Tony Robbins does. I just didn't know. And so now I knew. And that, for me, the launch echo, it doesn't have to be just speaking. It's all parts of your life. It's just when you put yourself out there, when you deliver the goods, when you deliver good value and good content, like the winds of abundance take you. Because if you're solving problems, and you're doing it in a way with humanity and respect and dignity, while still being serious and providing a place where people can get the information. Like, people get caught up in being an expert or not being able to be seen as being an expert. And I remind your audience, I have high school. That's it. And to be, considered one of those folks on the level with the other people. When I keynote, it's like doctors or, those athletes, Olympic athlete, on the bill. And then there's Jeff, right? There's, is because when you know your stuff and it works and it's based in science and you can back up your claims and it helps, like it literally, here's a pain point. Oh, I have an answer for that and a formula and a system and a way to do that. Here you go. And then it happens. Oh man, that's you just get carried, right? And then one of my strengths just happens to be on stage, where it's my favorite thing to do too. And you can look them in the eyes, right? So all of that. And then this is a worldwide disability. If you want to talk about business, right? If I think about growth, so there's not a lot of people in my space, and the reason for that is because parents can smell bullshit a mile away. Sorry about that, but they can. They have been told, my parents have been told everything and promised everything, and none of it's worked. And so my stuff's working. So do they give up about the letters behind my name when a lot of those folks have been giving nothing but the wrong information and making my parents feel small and belittled? And so I said, hey, what about my positioning is where you are the expert on your kid, and I'm just happens to be the guy who's sitting up in the press box, right? To use that sports analogy, and watch you play. And I've got years of experience, and I'm gonna help you out too. And the only difference between me and you is that I am regulated, and you're not. And so I have access to different parts of my brain than you do, right? So, because you'll get that too. Oh, That's such a good idea. Yeah. It's simple is because I'm not under a pool. I'm not drowning in a pool of cortisol, right? Of that stress chemical like my parents are. It's something else.
So you just used the phrase letters after my name. I'm like you. I've got no letters after my name.
Yeah.
I have no credentials whatsoever, other than I've been doing this and I've got the skills.
Yeah, that's right.
But that holds a lot of people back. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes. It does hold. People are shackled. Like I heard the other day is like, because there's a biological, like in the brain too, anxiety will do that because anxiety is trying to keep you safe. And for a lot of people, it is the scariest thing, right? All those prospects, and especially if you've had a life before and might be your new life. I was kind of coming into this, so I could understand that. But anxiety is, I heard this the other day, is just conspiracy theories you tell about yourself, right? And so a lot of this is the verbiage that is just not true. The second thing is we have to get over ourselves because nobody cares. You're not as important as you think you are. Like it's just me too, dude. Me too. Okay. Nobody cares. I heard this in one of your trainings, anchor training or whatever. I'll just say one of your trainings, that people don't care who you are until you have the answers they want. And I had the answers people wanted because it made sense because my free content is logical. And I did my positioning by doing a lot of the interview stuff. I would interview the doctors. I would be the layman's, like that's my position too, right? So I'm not afraid to look silly and be talking to like, Dr. Jeff Walker about neurology and he's speaking, but they get caught up in academic speak. And then I go, sorry, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm good for a spoon. Can you explain that again? And so I'm the bridge. I'm the curator. You don't have to know everything. I am the collector of information. And if it makes sense to me, then I could teach it to other people. And once you do that, you empower other people. Like, this is not about me being right. This is about it getting right. Because once you get it right, this isn't just like a better day. Like this is a better life. It's a better relationship with your kid. Like there's like, to hear families say there's been a year with no holes in the wall, or we haven't been physically assaulted by our kid. That's big. The other day on our group, a kid made spaghetti noodles for the first time, and he's 16, but everyone cheered because we know, what's going against these families and these parents. So if my position is to be there and to cheer them on and to curate this information and to charge people to do that and to provide a community and a safe space where they don't have to explain themselves or be judged by others. And some of these stories are just wild. But then, one of my parents will come on and talk and then they'll say something that is totally outrageous if you were outside of it. But the other parents are like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, mine too. Same girl. And it's like, and then to see what the parents like having better days and see the kids saying like, thanks. And next time maybe off the air, I'll show you. I'll just show you my messenger. I got a message from a dad. The girl just turned 25. He sent me a picture of her slapping golf balls, just saying, thanks, you saved my sanity. That like, what's the price on that, my man? So, and then we'll just top it off with this for like, the whole theme, daring to launch. Well, last year I did my first in-person event because I had launched like my caregiver club during the pandemic. So there was like the 2 years or whatever, and where we lived, it was late opening up. Anywho, I did my very first in-person event, okay? And let me just explain this because this is amazing. So I'm preempting my preamble. 150 people registered. Like that might not be a big deal for some, but it was for me, Orlando. And well, I had my coaches there too. Never had coaches before. PLF helped me with that. And actually their coaches in PLF helped me with that. Okay, so I had coaches, we're there, and people start trickling in, and that's cool because we're talking and we're meeting. But then all of a sudden, it was like the floodgates opened, and all of our people were everywhere. And it was everywhere I looked. It was like these Zoom squares in 3D, and I remember sitting on the pool and having a mom right here and a mom right here that were both in my group for a long time. And it was awesome. Like, see, I even choke up because like they were just so thankful. I couldn't even hold it. So I had to excuse myself. I just bawled my brains out in my room for a long time. And it was, so I'm glad that I dared to launch, right? Yeah, sorry about that.
I think that so many people don't, they come to our community with an intention around wanting to make an impact. And sometimes they're in that desperate need to also make some money along the way to do it. And there's this battle between them where because I talk with people on the cusp of joining sometimes and talking with them, because I happen to do some of the sales stuff, but they are in that place where if they could only make just a little bit more or this certain amount. And I heard Jeff talk about his story. If we could have just made an extra 10 grand in our first year with this launching thing, right? Like, and make an impact, right? Like, if there's a way to do something that matters, that really is meaningful, but also serve people, but then also find a way to have this be financially useful, that's a real battle for people. And let me ask you this, that when people are sitting there and saying like, is this really possible for me to do my dream job, have an impact where I want to go and make the money that I want to make for my family and for the people I care about? What advice would you give them if they're battling with that?
They're right. It is hard, and it is a big thing, and that is a big commitment, and it is a lot to think about. And you have been doing things a certain way for what does this mean for putting yourself out there if you've never really put yourself out there, and what does this look like? And I will tell people this, that just to start, you just never know. Like, just that's why I was like, I have no idea, but this sounds like the right way. They sound like they know what they're talking about. They seem genuine. I'm seeing other people who are layman's and doing it. And so this is what I want to do. And this is what I was going to try. I had to wait an extra year. So if it's almost like, they say, if you get a tattoo, wait a while. And if you still want it, then get it. So this was definitely my tattoo. I wanted it and I got it. And at the end of the day, in 5 years, was my investment worth it if it didn't work out? Like, if I did everything it said and it didn't work out, I'm the type of person I probably would have tried it just a different way, right? But to the people who are just starting, like, just start, just dip your toe. It's not as hard. It's not as scary. And in fact, as soon as you get one win, one subscriber, it changes. Watch that dopamine hit, right? And now we're chasing the dragon, eh, Jeff? But it's because what if they don't do it? What if there's a family or whatever your product or need? Like, that's how I think about what if I didn't do this? And, we have multiple programs now. I even have a program that has now been studied by a major university. One of my products, one of my launches, one of my programs is now has a longitudinal study. So now we're helping universities and we're curating. I just signed, not signed like you just verbally, with another organization, with the University of Calgary. And so now I'm working with their grad students to help them take a scientific paper and to break it down, and so that they can sell the science. So now I have this other niche of researchers who can't recruit worth crap because they just never learned how. So I have a database of their people, right? And so in exchange, we do value exchanges. I get their time, they give content, like I can ask questions because I want to get it right. And then in lieu, we can give them access to the people they need. And I love explaining the research. My people, I'm just the middleman, dude. I'm the hype guy. Give me a towel, and I'm gonna like a fight, like in a boxing match. And you have the cut man. See, I'm like your cut man, right? And so my parents literally sometimes are getting the crap kicked out of them. And then they come back to the corner and here I am, and I'm not always giving advice. Sometimes it's just holding a water bucket and just saying spit. In my case, it's just saying breathe. It's just listening. Sometimes it's just putting something cold on the bruise, metaphorically, of course, and then putting the mouth guard in, getting them centered, pat on the butt, get back out there for round number 2. And it's the same thing as being an entrepreneur as well. It takes time. It's not going to be overnight, and you wouldn't want it overnight because you wouldn't be able to handle it. That's another thing that I've learned. Once you're able to go incrementally, it's because there's more to handle. There's more spinning plates. And that's what, I know what I loved about PLF, because it doesn't matter if I started a new plate. There was a new area in PLF. They knew that plate was going to start spinning, and they've already have someone to tell me how to do it. Literally the juggler, right? I had to juggle all those things, so it's not always easy. And it's also like PLF and jumping into a business. But we could still keep it happy, but I've had a tremendous amount of loss in the last 2 years. My mom, my sister, best friend, my dog, and a moderator in my group. So, just a lot of that. But if I hadn't launched and I built a team and taken those leaps, I can't believe people get sometimes 3 days to bereave. That is criminal, man. That, and I didn't have to think of that because I had put in the time to build a team and a community. And since I've been my authentic self, sharing my story, they knew who everyone was, and my business grew. Was able to come back when I was able to come back, right? That's hence why we were able to do the podcast, because the first time.
I think it was before we started recording, you just mentioned, and Jeff, you can be so self-deprecating, but you said, I did manage to graduate high school, and now you've got a longitudinal study going.
Yes, science, man. Isn't that whack? It's awesome. Science. Okay, so... And there's rules, and it has to pass ethics, and they're serious. Academics are serious, and you have to follow the rules, because you wouldn't want to do all this work and then people just poke holes in it, So it has been great, and then to scientifically see that my program does X, Y, and Z, and now we're going to keep following the people because it's my membership site, right? So we have the lowest churn rate. It's just slow and steady. Even if I went on this trajectory, you know, in the next few years, it would just be 7 figures from just people re-upping the stuff, right? So I'm cool. I'm good with that. Once you get more money, it comes way less about the money. You still need it, and you pay people and all that stuff, but it becomes about helping, and what money does is it allows you to really help.
One of the words you used, when you're talking about your messaging and in your launches, is you use the word dignity. And, I think of just the people that are going to be going through your launch, that have just learned about you, and they're in a desperate state. You've talked a lot about it. They're in a desperate state, and, you could take advantage of that state, but it sure feels like you don't. You do treat them with dignity, and you're showing them, you're shining a light on a path out. And maybe it's not a complete solution, but it's a solution to give them a much better life.
Yes, much better trajectory for not only them, but for their families, because it's not just the individuals, the parents, it's the brothers and the sisters. I thought I was first, because I was first introduced as a foster parent. What I didn't realize is I had family members on the spectrum. People love people with FASD, and they don't even know about it. These are the people in your families that just can't seem to get together, but they are so nice. They will give you the shirt off their back, and you're just why can't they ever, why? Brain. It is all because of the brain, and for reasons that it's was out of their control. And, here's the kicker, Chris. You know what the deal is because 90% of individuals with fetal alcohol have no facial features. They look like you and they talk like you. They have great expressive language, so they sound competent. They often have average to above average IQs. But here's the kicker. You want me to give you something? Here it is. Here's what we know about the brain. We know that you have an IQ, and that's what you know. And you have something else that's called an executive functioning IQ, and that is what you do with what you know. So individuals on the spectrum, they know a lot, but that's not the issue. It's not what they know, it's what they do with what they know. And that's actually often, that is an area of the brain that is damaged, that is very impact. So what I mean by that is, if you have good executive functioning, that means you're going to be a good adult. That means you can hold down a job, you can plan, organize, you could do a launch, you could sequence. Like, this is all stuff your brain has to do. And so if you have deficits in what's called executive functioning, it's what separates us, from animals, allows us to hit goals and plan and manage and instruct, that whole higher order thinking. And if that is not working very well, you look like somebody who just doesn't care, or that you're bad. If you have impulse control, that issues, it looks like you don't care. You just do whatever you want. You're lazy. You're manipulated. You're unmotivated. This is what these kids are getting called. Parents are getting, told that they have to go to parenting class. They're the problem. They're the issue, and so they do come to us at that state, and I'm at the point where now it's like, bring it on, because guess what? If you follow this and you hang with us for the next 6 months, it's going to look drastically different. And it does. It's awesome. It's unbelievable, man. So what if I didn't dare to launch, they say? I made lots of mistakes. I still do. But the mindset is like, that's how you learn. It's also why it's hard, right? Because think about that. Think about all the people. Jeff, think about maybe people in PLF look normal, talk absolutely normal, have great ambitions, but aren't able to follow through. And it's not because they don't want to. It's literally because their brain won't let them. It's literally, that's why, because it could affect, from trauma, prenatal alcohol exposure, postnatal alcohol exposure, trauma, like anything like that. And then so people have these deep desires to do well, but they aren't able to because they don't have the right tools. And so because they look normal and they talk normal, we assume that what they're doing is willful and purposeful, and that's not the case. So we come in and we help, and we teach, and we give science, and we create safety and space and community, and then they grow and they transition.
What could you tell our listeners about selling with dignity and treating your prospects with dignity, but still selling very effectively?
Selling on the front foot was a big shift for me. And you could still, because it works. Now, selling with dignity means that your customer is not dumb. You're not better than. And I know a lot of people don't think, they're not a number. It's not an analytic. And people will give you money if you solve their problems. You aren't better than. You don't have to be this thing in their eyes. You just only have to solve one or two problems. You could have a great business by solving one problem really well. And by dignity, I mean that they know they're not dumb. Like, that's what I mean by dignity, like respecting them and when they have an objection or they're skeptical, like, those are sometimes often the best customers. So there are people hearing this that are on the fence are going to be some of your most successful students, right? Because they're analytical, they think about it, they really analyze, but I'm just encouraging them to move forward so they don't get paralysis by analysis, So with dignity just means, like, I respect you. I want to fulfill my transformation promise to you. I'm not phoning this in. I'm going to show up. The sale's not done after the thing's completed, and because you have to stay with them. And you have to go the extra mile because they have so much going on. So that's, Jeff, that's what I mean. Just straight up, because I could put out things, I could say things, I could make these claims, and because people are so desperate in my, like, for example, there was a study about this choline. It's a nutrient. Okay. It's found in lots of different things. And they did a study and how it helped the brain a little bit. My parents were ready to go buy cases, and like, they'll do anything. And so often they fall prey to these therapies and these things that don't work, and these false promises. And that's what I mean by dignity. Like if I'm telling you something, it's because it's what I know to be true at the moment, in lieu of maybe that quick bang, that quick buck. You get a lot of people in your program, but then when you do your another program, if only a small percentage come over, then that's, so that's what I mean by that.
Sounds so much like the authority sales trigger you talk about, Jeff. The best case for that is an earned one where there's really real results out of it. It's not the number, it's not the letters after your name. It's not the education you came with to this. It's not these other things that you think give authority. It really comes from the experience of your clients and the people on the other side getting results that actually matter.
And knowing that you know your stuff, your facts tell, stories sell. So this is why I teach my guys is advocacy is just sales. That's what this is. Advocacy is sales. You're sitting down at a meeting and you're trying to sell the administration the fact that your kid is disabled and you need accommodations, and they're trying to sell you on the fact that the kid isn't and that they don't. So and to be able to merge that, teach my parents not to raise their voice, but to level up their argument, and these skills that they don't ever have, but because they had big hearts, whether they were adopted, fostered, bio, like kinship means, other family, whatever the case. My parents are dedicated, but they've just been left out in the open for a long time. And we're closing that, and at the same time of getting all these awesome experiences, I could sleep at night. When you're yourself, and your marketing is a true story, you never have to worry about, okay, what did I say? What, even if it's with the best intentions, because it's a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a good launch is like a good story. Like that's it's so good, and because it's true, and that's how I feel. It's not a justification, and it feels good. And when your values match the value that you are presenting, that's, I feel, is the magic. Because frankly, you have to be passionate, or you're just not going to go through some of the struggles sometimes.
Chris, what are you thinking? Taco break time?
Let's do a 2-minute taco break. This is great. So for those of you who don't know, what this is I'm going to ask you some taco related questions, and they get steadily spicier as I go through them. All right. There aren't really any wrong answers, but sometimes there's wrong answers. We'll see. Well, first question we always ask is soft shell or hard shell?
Soft. Oh, we're talking taco, right? Hey,
We are. Guacamole or no guacamole?
Guac.
Got to go with the guacamole.
Buddy, there's no debates here. I got one word answers for you.
How about, all right, is your taco mild, medium, or spicy?
Do it depending on the day and what I have to do after. If I'm not having to do anything and I could be beside, a facilities, I'll go spicy. I'll mix it up.
All right. How many tacos are too many tacos?
So I usually 3, 4, depending on the size, depending on if it's a fish taco. But too many tacos, I don't know, dude. I have to abstain from that. That's a personal preference. Yeah. Are they small? Are they big? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is there a point? Well, when you are ill, I guess.
All right. How about this? If you had to pick between wearing taco hats, taco shoes, or taco shirts for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Like made from real tacos?
I think they have to be taco related wear. It doesn't have to be made from tacos.
Oh,
no.
Come on, big guy.
Taco themed.
Then I'm going shirt for sure. Yeah, because you could do that anywhere. Yeah, that never goes out of style. From boardroom to the beach, you walk in with a taco shirt, they know you mean business.
All right. So if you could up your taco fitness, would you run towards next taco truck? Or would you lift heavy tacos? Or would you work on throwing tacos really far?
I would probably lift the tacos. I'd get a deep squat going, kind of I'd make sure, if I'm lifting the taco, chest up like this, and I'm doing that. Yeah, I'm feeling the burn and I'm lifting tacos. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because then you're burning the calories, so you get extra guac on the taco.
Do you prefer a taco road trip or a taco beach vacation?
A taco road trip? Yeah, I do that. I do it. Wait, depends on who's in the car during the road trip, right?
Also, Taco Beach Vacation, to me, that just says fish tacos.
all day.
Yeah, but you could also get a wicked fish taco at Margaritaville in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? So, but I hear you. Yeah, a nice fish taco at Duke's. You know, in
or I'm
Hawaii.
sitting on a beach in Hawaii and that's what I'm.
Yeah. See, I've been there, and the only reason I've been able to go to all these places is to speak. Yeah. Yeah. So it's incredible. I would have never be able to go to all these other places. That's another cool thing. Anyways, keep going.
Nice. All right, my last taco question. Are you more excited to try new and innovative taco flavor combinations, or are you more excited to have your tried and true taco combo that you always know and like?
Being a man in my 40s, too many variables, dude. Your guts aren't like they used to. It's like you can't party like you used to, can't eat what you used to. So I would go tried and true. Again, it's all just about, I'm thinking ahead here. I'm more thinking about digestion and maintenance afterward.
All right. Well, thank you for indulging me on the 2-minute taco break there. That was awesome. Jeff, this has been really amazing. And we've hinted at a lot of great advice for people who are aspiring to launch. And I wanted to ask you kind of one final question around this. And specifically, we have this concept, launch life, where it's really about people not only getting to have the impact that they really want to have, but making the income that they actually get to have, and also loving their life and having the lifestyle that they really want. It's that kind of balance that people can aspire to. And I feel like you really embody a lot of that for our people. And so I wanted to ask you, what does launch life really mean to you now?
It means freedom. It means freedom to go all in on responsibility. Do you know what I mean by that? It means freedom for being able to go and work on and staying in my genius zone as much as I can. And then when I'm done, I could go do something else. And I don't have to ask for permission. I don't have to put a cover sheet on a TPS report. Well, now that my organization is building, you have to follow SOPs, right? But whatever. Thanks for putting that in, Jeff. Key indicators. So now they're the bane of my existence, but we need them, sorry, what was the question? Because I was just laughing.
What does launch life really mean?
Oh yeah,
to you
that's
now?
what that means. That means freedom. That means when your family has a crisis or a tragedy, you're not worried about how many sick days, work days. You're not worried about that. You could. Your dreaming is more lucid in terms of like, I could have that. I could do that. Because everything is tangible and it's doable. And then when you have a posse behind you, that's like what launch life means to me. It means getting back up. It means trying again, trying different. That's it. Literally, like, look where it's what time? It's 3 p.m. There's no desk job. I'm going for a run after this because I'm challenging myself in different ways. I'm going to do a half marathon. That's like, but I don't need to worry about certain things that are such stressors for people. And even if you have a high salary, that could go away. And so when people say the stability of a job, I think of like that it's less stable, launch life is to me at starting the day when I want to. Now you build habits and there's things, but some days you can go with the flow. And launch life to me means seeing your effort, the outcome in others' lives, their life and their experiences. Launch life to me means the rest of my life. It's true, dude. Like my mom died last month. I didn't have to worry about, honestly, like I did. I worried about grieving and bereavement. That's like, I worried about letting my brain naturally do its thing. Because from my background, I was like, why am I feeling like this? And now I know it. And oh my gosh, it's a thing. It's a real thing. So, but if I had to worry okay, because, I couldn't even send an email, let alone that's a week having to get up and go to work, man. Come on. So you can't process your emotion. I had a kid. I would have had to go back to work. We have a beautiful, she's going to be 6. She is launch life. She doesn't have to worry about her parents not being there, home or away. We're flexible. We could pick her up, drop her off, give her these experiences. Last weekend I worked at a cottage. Well, I literally watched her play in the beach and in the sand, and I wasn't at an airport. I wasn't looking out some window, right? Like, that's, sorry to go off, but that's what launch life is. It doesn't mean being a bazillionaire. We all have issues. There's still things, we're always trying. But when you get to a point where it is that point, and to sit in gratitude for that. But I didn't start there. And neither are people who are listening to this if they're just starting. But you'll never get here if you don't start there. Yeah, Bambi leg it, baby. Just wobbledy, and you'll get stronger.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the show today. If people want to learn more from you or get to see more of what you do, where can they go? What can they do?
FASDsuccess.com. That is my website, or our handles on Instagram, Facebook at FASD Success. The transformations in the name, baby. Yeah. So, all the things I learned from PLF. So that's where they can find me. We have a launch coming up. We have a podcast. It's called the FASD Success Show. We're pushing 200 episodes where I interview really smart people, but also parents, individuals on the spectrum. How else are we going to learn from them themselves, right? So it's quite a diverse thing. And so, thanks for the shameless plug, man.
We love what you do.
Thanks.
We appreciate you so much in our community and doing what you're doing and continuing to make the impact that you do. And for all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. And we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch. Holy cow, you just listened to us for over an hour. That means you probably liked the guest and the things we were talking about. You should really check out our launch community. That way you'll be around people like our guests that are out there actually launching and building their business. So go to getyouLaunched.com and you can join Jeff's free launch masterclass happening right now from August 15th to August 29th. Go to getyouLaunched.com and let's get you launching.